Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. In this video, I will break down the Thursday Night Football showdown between the Minnesota Vikings and the Washington Redskins. I did want to quickly mention the Monday Night Football showdown, and I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong. I took a stand and faded the Patriots' defense special teams based primarily on the salary, and they ended up being the captain in the winning lineups, scoring a total of 37.50 points. The total score for that winning lineup was a 107.30, which is actually 28.21 points lower than the average score of 135.51, and that's using a sample size of the 44 showdown slates. I did say if I was wrong, I would live to play another day, and that's why I'm here. I will say, though, that I was right as far as Sony Michel. He was actually the top scoring player in the game with 22.40 points. And I've recommended fading Edelman and Brady, and they scored a very modest 12.96 points for Brady and 13.70 points for Edelman. So that was the sixth showdown for the Patriots, and it's split evenly. Three times their defensive special teams was in the captain spot for the winning lineup, and three times Brady was in the captain spot. Okay, I could have, would have, should have. It's time to look at the Thursday Night Football showdown and hopefully build some winning lineups. First, I have updated the numbers that I have, which include the Monday night game between the Patriots and Jets, and with now we have 45 showdown contests. The average score for the winning showdown contest through 45 slates is 134.89. Then the average captain spot is scoring an average of 44.59 points. This is the updated captain breakdown. The underdog running back has appeared in the captain's position for the winning lineup 11 times, which is 24%. Favorite quarterback has been in the winning captain spot 10 times for 22%. Favored wide receiver 6 times in the winning captain spot for 13%. Underdog wide receiver 6 times in the captain spot for 13%. Some other numbers: defensive special teams been in the captain spot from the favored team 4 times for 9%. The favored running back has been in the captain spot for the winning lineup 3 times for 7%. Underdog quarterback has been in the captain spot twice for 4%. The underdog kicker's been in the captain spot 2 times for 4%, and underdog tight end has been in the captain's position 1 time for 2%. It's really interesting when you look at those the captain spot and you consider the straight up record as far as wins losses for these captains. And one thing that I found is the captain has been on the winning team 31 straight up, not point spreads, 31 out of the 45 games so far. The underdog running back has been on the winning team 8 out of 11 times. The favorite quarterback's been on the winning team 7 out of 10 times. The favored wide receiver's been on the winning team 5 out of 6 times. And the underdog wide receiver is even 3 wins and 3 losses straight up. The favored running back has been in the captain spot 3 times and won all 3 games. And favorite defensive special teams has been in the captain spot 4 times, and all 4 times has won the game. Underdog captains 1-1, underdog kickers 0-2, and an underdog tight end is 0-1. And again, to further break that down, running backs combined, favorite and underdog, have appeared in 31%, 14 of the 45 winning showdown slates for an overall record of 11-3. Wide receivers combined, favored and underdog, have been in 12 of the 45 for 26%, and they have a 9-3 straight up record. The quarterbacks combined, favorite and underdog, have been in 12 lineups for 26%, and they have an 8-4 straight up record. Through the first 45 showdown slates, the captain's position, as I mentioned, has an overall record of 31 wins and 14 losses straight up. So when you're considering things like the running back, and I mentioned this on Monday night, if you like Le'Veon Bell, and the reason I said this, if you see a path, and it makes sense, if you see a path where the underdog's going to win the game, and they do it with and you're going to use their running back, then you honestly feel like they're going to win the game. Not that it's a guarantee and that they can't go off and then the other team's passing game goes off, but it's just what through 2019, that's what these numbers are telling us. The favorite, and again, the favored running back and the favored defensive special teams are combined 7 wins and no losses. So getting the captain's position right is half the battle. No matter what type of contest you're competing in, whether it's head-to-head, GPP, double up, that half the battle is getting the captain spot correct. Using the research, I try to focus on getting 45 points or more from my captain's position. And remember, the captain score is 1.5 times the actual points that it scored, but it also costs you 1.5 times their salary. So with my captain, I'm shooting for 30 points. Do I see a path to 30 points for this captain, which will give me obviously 45? And, obviously you want more, and there have been several captains that have scored more than that. The 44 points that I mentioned earlier is just the average. Which leads us to the Thursday night showdown. How in the world do you use any other captain other than Dalvin Cook? I looked at this and broke it. He's extremely expensive, but I feel like this game sets up for him to be the top scorer in the game. Obviously, anything can happen, but I will mention back to the favored running backs when they've been in the captain spot. Their teams are undefeated, and they've only been used 3 times, but their teams are 3-0. And I don't see a running back from the Redskins being in the captain spot because I don't see the Redskins winning this game. The wide receiver, perhaps that would make sense, and we'll look at that as we move on. The Redskins are allowing 134 yards a game, which is 27th in the NFL. Dalvin Cook is averaging 103 yards per game and 25.8 fantasy points per game. On paper, the best matchups for the entire game is the Redskins wide receivers versus the Minnesota defense. Minnesota is ranked 29th against the pass. Without a doubt, Cook is going to be chalky in the captain's position, and I'm going to have my fair share of him. If I have 10 lineups, I'm going to enter across in different contests. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably going to have him in 7 of them. So as I mentioned, he is very expensive, $19,500. You can see here on the screen, which forces you to be very creative in other parts of your lineup. The Vikings are a 16-point home favorite, and they have an implied team total of 29 points. And Washington has a very low implied total of 13 points. So I'm not sure I want much exposure to the Vikings. Perhaps the Minnesota onslaught, bringing it back with a Viking receiver would be the way to go. Or if you want to team up Keenum with one of his receivers, that could be a way to go. I am a little bit concerned because I've read some things and seen some things from beat writers where Haskins has been looking really good in practices. Washington does have a new coach. If Keenum's struggling, it's kind of scary to think that, if the game's out of reach, would he go to Haskins? And that's that's scary. I do feel like this game could get out of hand, similar to the Monday night game. It's not really a good matchup when you look at it on paper, and trying to differentiate yourself is going to be really difficult. Like I said, with Dalvin Cook, probably going to. I wouldn't be surprised if Dalvin Cook was well over 50% owned in the captain's position. But if you build a lineup and he doesn't go off as somebody else on the team that goes off, one scenario where he might not be as effective is if somehow Washington is able to balance the scoring or keep the game tight, or if for some reason they get the lead and Kirk Cousins has got to start throwing the ball around. They do use Cook out of the backfield, but that's one game scenario where you could see that it might be more of a Minnesota receiver. Thielen right now he's actually, I just noticed, Thielen is out, so you don't have to worry about that. And this guy Johnson will probably be getting a lot of his targets. One particular build I like is fading Cousins, putting Cook in the captain spot, fading Cousins, using one of those receivers from Minnesota just in case. Because I don't think Cook and Cousins are going to go off in this game. And another thing that I researched, Minnesota's number 22 and Washington's number 24 as far as pace of the game. And in the second half, with the lead, Minnesota is actually 27th as far as pace of the game. So if they get a lead, they're definitely going to slow the game down, and which limits the opportunities for Washington if Minnesota has a lead. As I mentioned, I don't see a correlation between Cook and Cousins. And Sunday, they both scored. Let's just look here real quick. It was the one game where they both scored pretty good. Yeah, against Detroit. I mean, of course, the game had 72 points in it. Cook scored 30.9 points, and Cousins scored, let's see, Cousins scored 32.18 points. But again, 72 points in that game. I don't see Washington putting up that kind of points. So, as I said, I'm not going to build any lineups where if I have Cook in the captain spot, I'm probably not going to be coming back with Cousins. I feel like if Cousins has to throw a little bit, he'll do it just to keep Washington honest, and maybe one of the receivers will score a few points, and that's how I'm going to build. And I'm going to show you the lineup that I've been working on. And this is going with the game script that Minnesota is going to control the game. They're going to shorten the game. And Cousins isn't going to have to put the ball in the air that much. He might, in game one, in the first game of the season against, I believe, let's see here. Let's look at that real quick. I was just looking at that. Against Atlanta, he only threw the ball 10 times. So I mean, and then against Oakland, two of the games at home, one game he threw it 10 times, the other game he threw it 21 times. And that type of volume doesn't get you where you need to be with Kirk Cousins if he's in the captain spot for 18,000. So if you want to be contrarian, you could put him in there and see that they're just going to throw it to Diggs and this guy to Johnson and some out of the backfield to Cook, score their touchdowns through the air, and then take a big chance and fade Cook. But I'm not doing that. This is what I come up originally. Cook in the captain spot, and I brought it back with Diggs, and then I also brought it back with Madison, which is the other running back for Minnesota. He's getting about 7 carries a game, and if this game got really out of hand, you could see a situation where he would get some volume and put together some fantasy points. He actually fantasy points against Philadelphia. He carried the ball 14 times for 63 yards, lost a fumble, and against Oakland at home, 2 times at home, he's had double-digit carries. The Oakland game, he actually scored 11.8 fantasy points. So I'm going to fade Cousins. I'm going to use both running backs from Minnesota and Diggs. Maybe the contrarian move would be to use Johnson, but I'll show you the one that I have that I kind of like. And I probably will move this around a little bit. This lineup I'm going to use somewhere. I'm going to go with the top receiver, target guy, snaps, everything you look for in a receiver. Game script is going to Cook and the Vikings get a lead. Maybe somehow their defense turns the ball over and gets another score. Keenum's going to have to throw the ball, or Haskins, whichever is in there. It's going to be Keenum starting. But to keep it close or to catch up, that game script is probably going to go through McLaren. And even if he has Xavier Rhodes has had a terrible year so far. He got 8 alive the other day in Detroit. So another one is Quinn from Washington. That leaves me 2,300. And is there any further news on Adrian Peterson's is still questionable and Thompson's still questionable? If they're out, plug Smallwood in there. It's probably not going to get a whole bunch of points, but volume alone at 1,800, it doesn't take much for him to get value. So, and again, the reason I have Diggs in there is that just in case Cousins does have to put the ball in the air a little bit to keep Washington honest, maybe some of them targets would go to Diggs. Or if you wanted to, you could go and switch Johnson in there, which would allow you to take Smallwood out, which would open up. You could use all 3 receivers, or you could take Quinn out, put Keenum in there, and come back with Smallwood again. You could do that, just depending on whether or not Thompson and Peterson are out. I'm thinking that Peterson is probably going to play. Not sure with Thompson and that toe injury. I also ran an optimizer for this game, and I ran it for 150 lineups, and I just do this to look at randomization. And I'm going to show you real quick. I only allowed it to use 4 captains, and they were Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, Diggs, and McLaren. And this was the first lineup that it spit out. Dalvin Cook in captain spot. Sims, the wide receiver, and sometimes the optimizer will do that. It'll look for a low priced, and he's actually questionable too. Sims at wide receiver, Quinn at wide receiver, the Vikings defense, Keenum at quarterback, and Diggs. And that's the lineup that the optimizer gives, with Cook in the captain spot. So you're going to have to differentiate yourself And be real creative because Cook is going to be really popular. I've seen something the guy said if he had 150 lineups, he would put Cook in all 150 in the captain spot. So, of course, a twisted ankle real quick would make that a real ugly 150 lineups. But you're going to have to experiment, be creative, go with the game script, stick with it. That's what I did Monday night. Didn't work out for me. Lived to play another day, as I mentioned. Hopefully, this research provides you some value and enables you to build some winning lineups. I'm going to be back shortly to start looking at week 8 with my quarterback research. I want to thank you for joining me. Wish you good luck. Please hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so you get notified when my next video posts. My name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports, and I'll see you real soon.